you very much for having us. So according to the gig platform Fiverr, the digital laborer's drug of choice is sleep deprivation. So thank you for making us pretty high, I would say. We thought we would start by just first showing our prototype and then afterwards talking about how we ended up doing it and why we did it and how. So it is, or would be, a website called fragments.club. Right now it is locally and just check this is up. Why is this there? Select at least one fragment that matches once you think that nothing will ever happen with it. What is it? Ooh, yeah, okay. Well, select 5 fragments that match another train arrives. This one. There. Here and here. Okay, maybe now. Ah, yeah, okay. Oh, so no, we're in. What happens next? What happens next? What do you think? Maybe the bag enters the train. Okay, no, it's not online, but in theory now in the end we could invite a new member to the Fragments Club to join us there. So we will later explain actually what is going on there, but did we already open the presentation, this one? So we kind of started by talking about the collective, and I think we ended up talking about maybe 3 angles to the collective. So first of all, we were thinking, what could we as a team of 3 or potentially more people do together that we usually would not do? So not just find a common ground, but find something that we would be like a new ground for us, kind of. And I don't really know why, but we ended up watching a lot of Instagram stories as this kind of, when you look at it for some time, especially on this big screen we had in our room, it ends up being this collective video or movie, and that was pretty, yeah, it was kind of nice. And we also looked at my friends, who none of you probably knew, and was kind of, yeah, we're watching it. And looking at it, we realized that even though Instagram started as this app just on your phone, actually if you look at it in your browser, all these stories are MP4 videos that you can easily download and scrape. So while you think it's just a story for 24 hours and then delete it on the server, we're sure there is somebody scraping all the stories right now, and they're going to be preserved for a long time in some data set, forming another collective story, and another collective working on that story is, yeah, see it. Do you want to pick on this?
Yeah. And so this discussion about the collective was revolving a lot around the idea of fragments. Fragments, bits of content that were assembled to create a larger story, but also a work that is fragmented, because when we use those platforms, of course, we are actually working for somebody who actually make money from this work. And this work, the very nature of this work is that it's in a way collective, because it's the mass of these fragments that makes the value. But on the other hand, we have a very difficult relation with this collective because it's really hard to grasp. So we were wondering what kind of better term would qualify this collective, and that's how suddenly the word club came.
Yeah, it was something that I think was used was in that sort of quite enthusiastically proposed to call it a club. Yes, let's create a club. And it was quite interesting to see what it sort of triggered us, or what it sort of triggered in us, and what sort of questions were brought up. The club as being something that needs to be exclusive in order for it to exist, and something that needs a bouncer to tell people that they cannot come in, or to let others come in. So, one little anecdote that happened is that you were trying to log in for us as non-Instagram users into your Instagram account, and this login attempt was shown as a warning, like, no, it might be a crack, because you travel to another country and you get all these warnings by email saying, hey, somebody's trying to log in perhaps on your account.
And I had to enter a code to get in, which was sent to my email and so on.
So, when thinking about the idea of a club, and thinking about the topic of digital labor in machine learning, training these systems, but also in relation to social media and how we produce sort of images, we were interested to combine the two worlds into this prototype, but also in a sort of way of thinking. And having it on one hand a platform that both needs to be inclusive, like an online platform, like a social media platform that needs to be inclusive, but is also exclusive in a way. The bouncer being a sort of algorithm, ordering your timeline, proposing new friends to you, and by doing that, creating norms of that very platform. And on the other hand, having the data set as a club that is also both inclusive in terms of what is annotated and what is sort of accepted to be inside, but also exclusive because it's leaving out minorities perhaps or many other things. And a bouncer can be found in a captcha as a sort of tool to annotate a training set by a large crowd. But sort of happens that we do this in between trying to log in, but these sort of captchas also live in my core work platforms where Mechanical Turks do captcha-like tasks, and there are like all these things that condition that work. So we had these sort of two clubs.
Just one remark. I think with the captchas we've reached a state where it's like all images captcha feels like the stupid bouncer that like just let me in. No, you're not, and it's just so annoying.
But also this idea that gradually we're discussing Instagram, captcha, reCAPTCHA, Instagram, and the two kinds of paradigms started to mix, and that's what we were increasingly interested to do. On the one hand, we realized that the social platform, everything is increasingly turned into a data set. But also we could see Instagram as a large experiment of annotation with unpaid annotators. So, and the dynamic of this large scale experiment comes because all the users are taken into a game of production. Like you need always to produce more, and what you produce disappears, so you need to produce more again. And so we started to think about Instagram, that something that produced this sort of never-ending story could be also considered as a never-ending captcha.
First doesn't work. Okay.
So to work with this captcha, we spent some time looking at different data sets for training algorithms that range from observing the movements of somebody during 24 hours in a kitchen, to people dancing in the street, people having a coffee, people going to the photocopy machine, and so on and so forth, as well as images of surveillance of airports or bus stations.
Oh, let's see.
It's really long.
And of course, we were interested in the idea to bring this kind of imagery inside the realm of Instagram and having these different aesthetics crossing each other.
Yeah, it was actually quite interesting to start to look at these sort of data sets and realize that they're actually super boring to watch, but also very, very fascinating to see. And in a similar way, and opinions are diverse in the group, I think, about it, but also the Instagram stories video stream can be considered as very exciting with emojis and all these different things, but if you sort of, after having watched it for a longer time, we also felt a bit bored, or we couldn't really remember what we saw, because everything is sort of in this scope of making visual imagery. But we sort of were triggered by the enthusiasm of people or the enthusiasm to sort of create this quick imagery and quick videos during your day, and sort of we felt a bit nostalgic to sort of what is being called Web 1.0, quick publishing and quick sort of making, or not even quick, but sort of this enthusiasm to publish yourself. It was something that we wanted to work with.
Shall we? Is it like to already explain how it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to have
Shall we explain it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
You want to
what's the
just
diagram, or they don't
okay.
know where it is?
Yeah. Well, we were thinking about pipelines for some time. So if you like, as in the keynote also was pointed out, like AI isn't this artificial intelligence only, but I would say mainly it's a way of fragmenting work and then like making it into little tasks that you can do 24/7 all over the globe, basically. And then to manage the people who do this work in one way or another. And the idea we had was to kind of build a pipeline. Club is a pipeline which creates a dynamic in which people create their own video, their own movie, and there's nobody writing the script. People are writing it by themselves, and you want to get into the club to see the movie, and by entering the club, you are actually creating the movie. And then once you're in, you can then say who can get in and who cannot get in. So, is that the... I don't know. Yeah.
It's somehow not.
Okay. Because it's one, when you look at it first time, it's actually not so easy to understand, but the process is rather simple. So there's a two-step process to get into the club. The club is basically happening in here. We have this kind of fragmented story that is like expanding to that side, and you're basically asked to find a video how it goes on after these fragments. So once you're in the club, you can say what is next. You say, okay, I just said the bag will enter the train. So when the next person comes, it arrives here, but just to go backwards, here you have this task of saying, okay, select all videos that match the bag will enter the train. So by selecting these videos, one of them is being picked, put here, and you expand the story, and once you did that, you can again expand even further. At the same time, these videos that you have just picked here are being put in front of this for the next user, and this person has then to look at the job that you had and kind of recreate it and say, okay, at least one video I pick is the video that the person before me picked. And in that way, it's kind of exclusive, but you want to send it on to friends to work even further on it. Yeah, does it make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other aspect is that when you're asked to solve a CAPTCHA in general, what is interesting comes after the CAPTCHA. But in this proposal is that everything happens through the solving of the CAPTCHA, and once it's solved, you're in. But the only thing you can do is to invite somebody to come in again and solve another the CAPTCHA again, another CAPTCHA.
So we just send the link to, for example, Marco, and he's presented with this, and he's like, okay, should I have to get in? So another train arrives, and he has to pick one of the videos that I picked earlier, which wasn't this one. Maybe it was this one. I don't actually remember. Yeah, that was it. And then the back enters the train, and then you are stuck with this problem, and you can say, maybe here the back will enter train, and maybe here, here, and here. And you added another story to the bigger story.
Do you want to add something?
I think that's it, yeah.